So I want you to have a realization of yourself as God, as the life force, as sentience. It's an incredibly transformative experience. Until you realize yourself as God, you haven't attained much in spirituality. You may feel bliss, happiness, love, but that's like being in the foothills of a large mountain rather than being on top of the mountain. Mary, did you realize yourself as God yet? Or are you still in the stage of wondering what the fuck happened to you? As joyous as it was, have you realized yourself as the life force inside?
I'm going to answer yes.
What was the experience like? This is a 60-minute satsang. You only get 3 minutes.
I can't.
Did you feel the life force explode inside of you?
Yeah.
And a few days later, you wanted to go around everywhere and shout, I am alive. I have come alive from nothingness, from emptiness, from the mundane world. I have come alive.
Yes.
Alive.
And I still feel like that.
Alive. Alive to the life force, to the Godhead. You are no longer in the mundane world, the world you have been in.
It's like you're in it, but you're not of it.
That's another experience altogether. Okay. I want to give you that experience. The explosion of the realization of yourself and your relationship to the life force. You are not the life force, but you feel it within you, and it invigorates you, enlivens you, and raises your whole existence, your whole consciousness to a different level outside of the mundane world, so that you live in the holy, you live in the divine. And though day to day you may have to continue to deal with the mundane, it doesn't feel like you're dealing with the mundane because you're really not paying any attention to the mundane aspects. You're going through the motions. But all of your attention is really on your divine self. This totally transforms you. Totally transforms you. Totally transforms you. And it happened to me because somebody loved me. And I felt it very acutely. Somebody loved me in such a way that her expression of the love created a big, big love in me. which grew, 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 and grew over the days and weeks and months until it seems that God was pleased with me and revealed himself to me. Now, God realization is really only the first step in this kind of spirituality. But it is the most important step because it takes you to a world of bliss and happiness, joy, even when you have a headache, your hip hurts, or you can't walk because of your hip. It takes you to a place where you're ridiculously happy. So I want you to get this. That's what I bring to you. It's what I try to give you during satsang. A little bit of taste of it by talking about it. But also talking to you from that state of identification with the divine. The purpose of my coming is to bring you to the divine. That's all I have to give you. That utter liberation of realizing you're not the body. That you're something much more than that. You're something much more than being Mark. Or Zach. Or Mary with a history and an education and a family and a television set and four walls. You're much more than this. When the divine explodes inside of you, it's like Krishna showing his divine form to Arjuna. And Arjuna being so overwhelmed by the power, the light, the glory of Krishna that he hides his eyes because he can't take the brilliance and the expansion offered by Krishna. And he cries out, "Can you stop that and assume your human form so I can breathe a little and I can go to war?" And Krishna goes back to being a human. But there is nothing like this experience. Nothing like this experience. Nothing. Your best dope high of all times comes nowhere near God realization. Your best fuck of all time is 1/10 or 1/20 the high, the explosive experience you get out of God realization. So how do you convey that? How do you convey God realization to your audience? For me, when I come here, about the first 5 seconds of satsang, it descends on me. This feeling of God realization. And I try to bring it to you in words and in spirit by directly allowing you to feel where I am. And I try to do that by submerging into this God realization state and hopefully allowing you to feel what it feels like. That's how I teach. And that's how you should teach in the future if you ever become a teacher. To bring your God realization to everyone else by being in it, speaking from it. And not talking about other things, except as it's relevant to conveying what this state is like and the wonders of this state. How happy you feel, how powerful you feel, how filled with like 1,000-fold aha, aha, but 1,000 times what normally you would say with aha. And with energy spilling out of your fingers. Like waterfalls that go to the end of each finger. The ecstasy. Your whole body is filled with light and power. And your mind is stunned because you don't know what the hell is happening. That's what God realization is like. And it started with a woman reading Rumi to me on her iPad. A love poem by Rumi. Saying for his whole life, her whole life, she had been searching for my face. And now she found me. I know when I heard those words, I became very shy. Very open. And something happened in my heart. I felt a movement of love. And it's been a long, long time since I had felt that movement, but never so quiet, solemn, and a holy moment as being with her in that car. There was a communion between the two of us. I felt her gentleness. I felt her love. I felt her devotion. And I felt the life force in her. Not as I was to find it later in me. And that's when I began thinking, women are different than men. Women are much closer to God than men are. They're far closer to their hearts than men are. And she, by her words, was taking me to her heart, which allowed me to love later so deeply, so obsessively, and felt love so strong that it became unimaginably large, the love I felt towards her. It just grew and grew and grew and grew. We were separated by 1,800 miles. But it's as if we were together all the time. We became almost telepathic about what was happening to the other person. We were obsessive about it. She called me all the time. I called her all the time. I'd get up in the morning and rush off to Starbucks with my laptop so I could be able to talk to her for hours, even while she was at work. She got very little work done for those hours and afterwards. I got very little anything done because the love kept growing and growing. And one day, it was so powerful, the love I felt, that I looked at it. And it was no longer separate from me. I realized I was that love. I was love itself. She brought it out in me. But I was love itself. I was love itself. And a week later, she went off to Chile, I believe it was, to do ayahuasca with a shaman down there. Had a horrible experience. But I felt no separation. I felt wonderful. And that's when God realization happened. After I had discovered that I was love itself and had immersed in that experience. Immersed in that experience. Sunk into love itself. And that's when God granted me the experience of showing himself to me in all his power, all his light, the light of the universe, power of the universe, stormed through me, thrust through me, uplifted through me. And I was just shaken to my core, like Mary was. Shaken to my core, like Mary was. With a silly smile on my face. I knew I was God. I knew that he and I were not separate, that I was like in the human form, like a finger to the hand or arm of God. We were the same substance, flesh, or energy, or spirit, or love. We were the same. He was just much more mighty than I was. But I was the same. This is what God realization was for me. I was separate but the same. About this period of time, a little bit after this, we were breaking up. She said our sanghas, our satsangs, where we talk to each other, express love, devotion. Too much for her. She didn't get it. She didn't get God realization herself. And all she thought about was how our love was damaging her relationship with her husband, her employer, and her children. She was obsessed with me, and it took her attention off her family and her job. Because she wouldn't do anything at work except have orgasms and feel love. How can anybody do anything when they feel orgasmic all the time with waves of love and energy and bliss going through us, from one chakra to another, from the stomach chakra to the heart chakra, and then to the head, and to have a full brain orgasm. The body was helpless, just writhed, feeling the bliss and the ecstasy. This is what I want you to have. It changes everything in your life. It changes everything in your life. You're never the same after that. You're still the same person. I mean, you still feel like a person. And you recognize your limits. But inside, you feel like God. And you can convince yourself you have all kinds of power in this world. And to the extent you believe in it, it will happen. But it'll also be frustrated. You find there's limitations to what you can do with sheer belief in yourself as God. And willing things to happen with your intent. And you play with these powers that come through you for a while. These cities, whatever comes to you. Until that play begins causing damage or hurts people. And then you stop it because you don't need to. It was just an interesting thing that developed, and you played with it. But people got hurt, so you stopped it. I love you all. Why do you think I'm doing this? Do you think I come and do this to feel important? Or to dominate a group of 16 to 21 people? To have a cult following? To have a cult following, you have to be rather stupid and have stupid followers like Trump. And there he is up there blowing up his ego. And people are seduced by his apparent self-confidence and knowledge, when in fact, he's a dummy. And it's dummies who love dummies because he makes being a dummy okay. But the God man is only interested in sharing Godhood with people. That's his only wish. Not to become specialist in different supplements and exotic substances to change our consciousness, like a medicine man or a shaman. But to transcend all of that, transcend the spiritual planes of different dimensions, the invisible worlds of energies, demons, entities, aliens, to rise totally out of that dimension to that of being God, creator, giver of life. Is that how it feels for you, Mary? A little bit?
Everything that you just shared. I just want to shout and leap out of this chair and yell my head off.
Okay, let's see that.
I think maybe one day you will.
Okay. Love you, Mary. Now, Stevie, you feel more alive now and loving and compassionate, that you live in a divine world. But does it match what I've been saying? Do you feel that?
%. Yeah.
Did you have a singular experience or experience over time, slowly?
One singular moment.
What was it like?
I didn't know anything about spirituality, so there were no relations to any sort of God or anything. It was just sort of a piercing, impossibly pure light that just made me dissolve entirely. And when I came back to being a person for about 10 days, I couldn't talk. I was just deliriously, hysterically smiling and laughing and touching everything as if it was the most beautiful thing in the world. And inside, I was just weeping at the beauty of everything. And I felt like I was sort of watching my body walk around for 10 days or so. It was profound, changed my whole life. So that's why I'm here.
Ralph, what was your experience? Is he still there? Mark, what is your experience? Was?
Well, let me preface it by saying that it's not to the degree that I haven't experienced that singular moment of God realization, although I have had many dramatic experiences. But primarily, my relationship to beingness is where I'm at now. So that calming unicity and that departing from the mundane self into the beingness and abiding there and having it integrating that sense into my day-to-day activities is my current focus. But I definitely am at the foothills. Definitely, I'm through the hallway at the foothills, but I haven't yet ascended to the top. I don't think. I don't know.
Cassie.
I do know who I am.
And
And it's just, it's very big. My heart's pounding right now. I am very big. I'm just very big.
Okay, relax. Just be still and know you are God. I found God realization, true love for another, initiated by her loving me. And it cascaded into every day growing more and more deep in these energies in the light until I exploded in that realization experience. And that was really just the beginning of my spirituality. It just kept unfolding after that, daily, weekly, monthly deepening. My wisdom kept growing. My understanding kept growing. I had these silly powers too. And I played with them, even though all teachers warn you not to play with them. For Nisargadatta, it was poetry. He developed a flair for poetry. So Siddha Rameshwar said, stop that. Just attend to yourself, not to the expression of your poetry. Same with you, Stevie. You feel that music is a God-given skill that you must manifest to the world. But in fact, it's a distraction from being God. It's better to be still and be God than to be into the music and sharing with others. It's a distraction from who you are right now. Any comments, questions?
I feel that I've realized that I am the 100-room mansion, and that is a synthesis which only comes from your satsangs, which become and are more powerful each time you come here, and every word resonates in a way that takes me into a different room of the mansion, and it's indescribable, and I'm trying again to speak about the unsayable, but words point at something that the love that resonates here, and where you take us each time, where you take me. There are experiences that I haven't had, but it becomes a Shaktipat sadhana. There's something so explosive in these moments now, because you are just resonating celestially, cosmically, consciously on a level that so close to, as you say, the state, so close to the absolute, so aware of our needs and how to try to transmute our sense of love and joy and bliss, and you do, and the feeling is indescribable, as I said, deeply, more profoundly perfect in every single satsang.
You gain 34 brownie points for what you said today.
I love you. I love you.
I love you too. I love you too. Anybody else?